Hey there. So my next guest, coach and analyst for an esports team. And the fact of the matter is he's actually really young. The fact that he's doing this is incredible. He's able to get in there and he's entrepreneurially minded. He's got his eye on the prize and he's got so much going on. And once you hear his story, you're absolutely going to love him. You're going to really enjoy this one. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have Shivendu Mishra. How's it going, Shivendu?
Awesome, Doc. It's just, like a day starting up. Looking forward to, do something quite productive today. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Good. Now, I should ask, where do you hail from? So where are you out of?
Yeah, so currently I'm based in Delhi, New Delhi, India. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So prior to that, I was pursuing my ventures besides studies in Chandigarh, India. So it's like a couple of miles from Delhi. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, so Shivendu, could you please begin? I like getting right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, so the name part is known, Shivendu Mishra. So currently I'm based in New Delhi, India, and I happen to be an entrepreneur, just to say, because I have a venture, but that's not active. But besides that, I'm vested into a couple of things. So it goes as far as my profile says over the other social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So it goes like music, business development, consultancy, and that is in esports particular. So yeah, into 3-4 domains I'm in. So that's pretty much it. And video gaming, just to sum it up, because most of the people still don't get what electronic sports is. So I prefer to call it competitive video gaming. So that is pretty much, that defines me. It's a lot of things, but I have to sum it up into shortly, then it will go like that.
Fantastic. There's a lot to unpack there, and we will here in a couple of minutes. But I begin every episode with a single question. I'm going to ask you just like I ask everybody else. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you?
If the scale can exceed, probably 10.5, but I would keep it 9. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because like we haven't hung out much. It's probably the first time we are, having conversation, and it's just because I find things quite different, Doc, because there's a mainstream thing that's going on, and then there's then there's like a separate part which I believe can be mainstream in a couple of years, say 5 or 10 years later on down the line. So I tend to think in that way because probably I've been conditioned like that, although like I won't indulge into all that thing. It's again like a really huge topic to discuss, like how things have been throughout, how my parents have because see, some would be like, parents are all good, all chill, and they are, right? But I know, like I tend to think in that way that okay, the parenting would have been better, right? The conditioning could have been better. But one peculiar aspect that, I can take from that is my mother always used to say that, be different. Don't be a part of the crowd, because everybody is trying to be a part of the crowd, right? So yeah, I try to explore weird things. I try to do weird things, which I do believe that, can have some productive outcome as well. So yeah, like I tend to have a synergy, because somewhere down the line, you'll find folks who are just doing stuff without a reason, right? They are going like all the haywire, but yeah.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I think, but I am good. Yeah.
All right, and your mother gave you some fantastic advice. It's absolutely true. Okay, Shivendu, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast, so I'm going to need your gaming cred. When did you first start playing video games?
Way back in 2003, right? So it started when I was 3 years old. So in 2003, I was 3. And it should I add like how it all started? Like
go ahead. Yes, tell us.
Yeah, so because it's very lengthy, but I'll try to sum it. I'll try to shorten it. So it all happened with my dad, right? And it's very ironical now. So if you hear this thing in America specifically about Asian parents or Indian parents, they are being very particular about their child's future and career. And there are memes surrounding that in US as well. Not only US, but it's worldwide. But I find that, most of the comedians usually bring that up. They are very skeptical and they want to choose only 2 careers, either engineer or doctor or lawyer. But it all started like back then in 2003. And the ironical part, as I was mentioning about, is that my dad taught me how to play. The very first game, probably, I don't think you might have heard of it. It wasn't that much popular. It was called Beetle Crazy Cup. We have the Volkswagen Beetle. So it was based around that, like a Beetle racing game. And there were a couple of cars in that. And it was a demo version. Now, back in the days, we had this shareware, if you're familiar with. Obviously, you must be sharewares and, all these things that used to come in CDs, like physical disc. I'm talking about 2003, right? So my dad taught me how to play. And years down the line, now he's only criticizing what I'm doing, right? He's like, why are you playing video games? And not that much right now, but if I take it a couple of years ago, it was he was really against it. And he still is, but I do believe that, with time, things would change. So that's where it all started. He taught me how to play. Now he's only criticizing me to, not go about it.
So. I'll tell you, I have somewhat similar experience, except I'm 33 and my parents still don't know I'm doing this. I don't want to tell them. I know what their reaction will be.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been playing for 17 years now, and you had to pick one game. What is it you would play above all others? What's your favorite game?
Oh, Doug, that's a pretty hard question to go about because, if it's about games, it has to be Counter-Strike, right? But I don't consider Counter-Strike as just a game. It defines me, right? So if Shivendu or Shibzi, just to say, as people know me in the community, if it's something, then it has to be Counter-Strike. So yeah, but I don't consider it as a game. As I was saying, it's just an emotional part to that. But at the end of the day, it is a video game, so it has to be CS:GO. Like back in those days for 1.6, then came Source. Now it's CS:GO. So yeah, it would be Counter-Strike.
All right, so let's go on to the preneur part. Can you give me your professional background? Kind of like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so it all started, as I mentioned, just by playing, So I was curious, like, how can I actually make a career in video games? Because back in those days, especially in India, the exposure was relatively less, like, nil, almost nil. If you're like playing video games, people either look down upon you in most of the cases, because in India, we do have metro cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, but it's limited. It's like very limited that you have. And so even in those metro cities, the exposure was very less because there was not much awareness. Right, the internet had just kicked in. Like we had internet since 90s, but in India it was like around that point it was still developing. So there was not much awareness, stuff like that. And in fact, you won't believe, like I got to know about esports much later, around 10 years later in 2013. That what is all esports and competitive gaming. So prior to that, it was just like just a chill going thing. I play video games and I wanted to know what I can do. And you won't believe, even at one point of time, I wanted to be a scientist or a WWE wrestler, so that was my childhood pretty much summed up. You have those interests, it's common. But when I look down, when I look back, I feel, oh my God, it was so pathetic. Like, first you want to be a scientist, then you want to be a WWE wrestler, and now you've just switched on the field. So yeah, it just went on like that. But in 2012, as I was mentioning, now we'll fast forward to that era. So in 2012, I got to know about a tournament that was happening. And unfortunately, it happened to be one of the biggest scams in Indian esports industry history, right? So it was Indian Gaming Carnival. If somebody would dig upon like the top 10 biggest esports scams, it's probably second or third on that list. So it had like a 1.5 crore Indian rupee prize pool that sums up to almost, say, 100 grand or something, 100 grand or 150 grands in US.
Yeah, a little bit,
in US currency. And I'm talking this about 2011. When 150 grand, and that too in India, was just like something mind-blowing. And players from Russia, like Doja and all, so if you're familiar a little bit with the Counter-Strike scene, so even if not, it's fine, but players from Moscow, came over to India and they got robbed. So that was like quite a shame on the Indian face. And but yeah, that's what I got to know about what is esports, how do things work. But I didn't have a PC back then. I used to have a normal laptop, 40 FPS, the gamers cry as we call it. So I used to give it 40 FPS, but then I started exploring, how can I have a career? What are the options in the field? So yeah, then in 2016 I got my first rig. Hard time getting it. I had to convince my parents really bad. Again, typical Asian parents. Again, a very peculiar instance. Sorry to taking more time with that, but my dad was Again, the person who taught me how to play, he was comparing the prices of groceries, of vegetables with the PC, right? When I was getting the PC, he was like, in this much amount, we can get groceries for 3 to 4 months. Gosh, right? So he was like, he said that in Hindi, right? So Hindi is language over here. So it was like that. But yeah, then I explored, and in 2018, specifically 2018 now starts off with my college, like my university thingy. So I think in US as well, I think we have a similar term only, but because there's slight differentiation in the terms that we use for school and college in US, but I'll go with the university part. So my university started, and that's where I started participating in tournaments. Now, prior to that, I also participated in tournaments, but they were not major ones. So that year marked my journey as a player, right? So I played Counter-Strike, I was started playing in tournaments. But Doc, at the back of my head, I always had this thing in mind that I want to do something for the community, right? I want to help our people. Like, if there's a Shibzi or a Shivendu 10 years later, at least there's somebody to guide them, right? Be it financially, be it setting up with the resources and all. So I thought, like, is it possible just by being a player? Like, if I'm a Counter-Strike player, would be able to do something for the community, right? Because at the end of the day, if I have to do something on the large scale, I need to have something in my hand, right? Then only I can do it for the people. So being an esports athlete in India, I didn't think of that as a viable option, because the sum that you make up in a month, the monthly earnings that you have just by being a player, right? I don't think they are sufficient enough to set up a gaming cafe, right? So I do have plans to, set up cafe or something, maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, but it requires a huge investment, right? Because a single gaming PC, it averages around 1,500 US dollars. So if I go for 20 gaming PCs, it's simple maths, 30 grand. So I need to have at least 30 grand in my pocket. And besides that, I need to pay for the maintenance and all. I need to pay for the, wirings, housing, all those things. So I didn't think, and I still don't think it's relevant to, go about that being just an esports player. So I started look for entrepreneurial ventures. Like, how can I be an entrepreneur in this field? So I started up a venture along with one of my friends. It is called, I won't take the name over here. I'm sorry for that, because, I parted ways with them. I took off. There were certain things that didn't go right. So I had to back off. But yeah, it was an upcoming esports organization. Something went wrong in that. But yeah, so that is like, so first I was a player, then I transitioned into an entrepreneur. And yeah, so
Okay,
currently.
yeah, what are you working on now?
Yeah, so currently I am a coach for an esports team. So it's like, and again, the interesting part is like it's rival, like, the organization that I founded and the organization that I am in now. So they are kind of like rivals, because, things didn't go wrong in the previous organization that I started. So their rosters, they were picked up by the new team that I'm a part of. So, it was kind of like the previous team departed its roster, and the team which I'm a part of right now, it picked up all those players. It kind of became rival. So yeah, I'm currently a coach and an analyst for the team. It's called Sancfroid Gaming. You can check it out on Facebook. So they were trying to get me in the management part as well. They were convincing me that, Shivji, please help us out with management if you can. But I was like, no, dude, seriously. I want to take a break because I co-founded an organization. So I've had my experiences with that. Now I don't want to indulge in any sort of management. You can take my services as a coach and an analyst. Maybe, obviously I'm interested in, finding my own esports organization. But Doc, I do think there's time for that, because, I don't want to rush things up, because the very basic thing in esports or a team usually it's that you need to be on same pace, right? You need to think on same pace. You need to think on same pitch. And obviously, there are a lot of more things. There are finances. There are a hell of a lot of things that goes in. So they all need to synergize with each other. They all need to play together with each other. Then only things going to work out. Because I'm not looking for a short time team. I thought big. I've had my tryst with all these short teams that thought that we're going to make it big someday. Everybody starts like that. We're going to make a 5% team. We're going to make it big. We're going to play tournaments, but nothing works out. You lose one tournament, everything goes away. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay, so Shivendu, you are currently a coach and an analyst. Can you kind of
Yeah.
describe a little bit what is it? What is your job responsibilities? What is it you do? Like, how do you help this team move forward?
Yeah. So the main thing is that I have to analyze the demos, right? So there are team demos of the gameplays, basically, right? So I have to analyze the gameplay of my team as well as the opponents, right? So I look out for the strategies. I look out for where things can be right, where things are going wrong, and that is my part as an analyst, right? I tend to analyze things. Now, coming on the part of coach, I have to make strategies and also instruct the players like what is right for them. So basically, I'll just simplify. So in Counter-Strike, there's like a spray pattern, right? So each and every weapon out there has a particular spray that you got to master, right? So there's the spray pattern, then there are smokes, flashes, all the utility usage that we call it. So being a coach, I have to help out players with that, where to use your smokes, flashes, how to time them correctly, and pretty much all of that gameplay part. And besides that, even kind of like on emotional and mental well-being, we do have like psychologists for that. It is a dedicated profession in esports industry. But in India, in India, and especially it's not only in India. When things are starting up, you have to do multiple jobs. You have to do multiple roles, right? So besides just being a coach and analyst, I tend to mentally and emotionally also guide my players. So it's like a kind of, you can say, a psychologist or a mentor kind of role that
Can I
I
ask,
play.
how do you cope with that yourself? Obviously, you haven't been trained to do these things, but you're here and you're finding, metaphorically, people crying on your shoulders, and you have to be there for them. What is it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get through it yourself?
Again, dog, I would say it probably my conditioning because, I don't know, it's just a part of my personality. And again, the apart from the thing that you say that I don't have a background for this thing and it's all of a sudden a completely new thing for me. So how I go, but besides that, I don't know if it's relevant or not, but often when I tell people about my age, they are quite shocked, right? They are astonished that, okay, at such a young age, probably early age, you are being a coach, because it's very rare to, find coaches that are around 20 or 22. Usually the coaches are more experienced guys, right? The ones that who have experience with the gameplay, like X1.6 professionals or the X players. Yeah, but I think it has to go with my personality. God's grace, I tend to have that personality, and I've been like that since childhood. Being compassionate, having the values of empathy, and obviously agility. Now, agility is often talked about in business, right? You need to be agile. But I think all these qualities I've had there since childhood, and I don't know, dog. It just comes naturally to me. I don't know about work because for the work, obviously, I have to learn a lot, and again, there's like a psychological thing associated with that. I won't indulge in that, but yeah, for the work aspect of things, I have to learn a lot. But for the values, if we talk about the core values like empathy, as I was discussing about empathy or agility or compassion, they just come into me automatically. Like I don't have to learn those things. People go out there, they explore and learn those themselves. But these values, they just come automatically to me. I don't know.
Well, that's
So
wonderful.
yeah,
Fantastic. Okay. Now, how long have you been doing this, Shivendu?
like for the coaching or
Yeah.
analysts, you're talking about?
Just kind of, so you said you kind of really got into esports about 7 years ago or so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then
yeah,
you really started picking it up, what, a couple years ago?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right. So let me do it this way. If you could go back 7 years in time, okay, so that you're roughly 13 years old at this age, and you can go
yeah,
back and you
yeah,
talk to little Shivendu, and you go,
yeah.
look, this is what's going to happen over the next 7 years of your life. Here's everything that happens, all right? But here's the one thing that matters the most. What is it you tell him?
I didn't get catch that. Can you go about that again?
Okay. If you could explain to your younger self, if you had the chance to go back in time and talk to yourself and tell
Mm-hmm.
them everything about what's going to happen, what is the
Okay.
one
Yeah.
most important thing you have to make sure he knows?
Ah. Well, that would be really, really controversial. I don't know if I should say about that. All right, I'll just take it to the career because that thing we can keep it separately and probably for another podcast because I do think that is very important. It's society goes out with the mannerisms and the behaviors, right, and your daily activities. Because I got indulged myself in a activity that is not that much talked about, out of the public, but it is a sort of addiction. I don't think it's bad. I don't condemn it at all, but it is something like really, really that took a toll on me, especially with the time, because it's really time consuming. A lot of time goes in that. But yeah, talking about the professional aspect of things, talking about the career. So one thing that I would like my younger self to know that you know there are a lot of opportunities. They're not just one thing. Back in the day, it was only about, okay, you gotta be a player. You can only be successful being a player. But there were a lot of opportunity that were existing back in those days as well, like casters, the commentators that we have on streams. We have the streamers as well. And yeah, so there are a lot of opportunities. And one thing that I like find that I didn't go right about was being skeptical about YouTube, because I also have a band, not that much active, but I used to perform a couple of gigs back in the day. So, it was the thing that my bandmates used to say that, okay, Shivzi, let's make a YouTube channel, right? But I was like, no, let's do that traditional way. Let's get out an album. Let's get out a record first. Like, what used to happen back in those days, people used to have physical records being selling out on the market. So I thought that, because otherwise what would happen if you are on the YouTube, which I was wrong. I admit that, YouTube is like the money minting machine of today. But 4 years back then, I thought, if you're on the YouTube, you're going to be restricted by only YouTube audience. You're getting that? Like only by the YouTube people, you would be categorized as a YouTuber, not as an artist, not as a band. So I was wrong about that. And I think that I could have started a little bit early, especially with the streaming part, because it's very necessary to have a personal brand of yourself. You need to, brandify, should I put it that way. You have to make a name in the market, and streaming is the best option for that. So yeah, if it's about career aspects, it has to be the multiple career options exist. But yeah, as far as the controversial part goes, and I think that is much more important, Doc, because I seriously regret that thing. I regret as in it took a lot of time from me that could have been utilized in a productive way. But I don't condemn it. I don't feel that that thing is bad to indulge in. It all goes on personal perspective. If you have time for that thing, go for that. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. Now, that's advice you'd give yourself. Imagine now someone who was 13 years old came up to you and was asking you for advice on how to get into this industry. What would you tell them?
So like 7 years ago, it was a little bit difficult, because it was not that much awareness. It was difficult as well as easy. Now, it's like two sides of a coin, because when an industry is starting or setting up, right, it's easier because the competition is less. People are just being aware to the scene. They're starting to build up to certain things. So yeah, it's two-faced. But the other thing is that you're not certain as to how to proceed, because the industry is still new. People don't know about that. Hey, how I'm gonna spread the word about it. So if it has to be 7 years ago, and if people wanted to get into the industry, then it would have to be the best part, and it still is, getting in touch with the biggies out there, the ones who are already the players in the community, and I think that is the best part of gaming community and the gaming industry altogether, besides each and every industry out there. But I think it's now all common because of social media and all. What happens is that if you have a famous personality, either in gaming or esports industry, they are very much into helping out others. As in, like, if you want to have a podcast or a discussion with a famous personality, I think it would be easy. It won't be that much difficult to get an A-list celebrity with equivalent following, because gamers these days have a decent following, right? They all, it's, if you see Twitch, if you see Twitter, so it's very easy to get a good game, get in touch with a good gamer with a decent profile out there. And back in the day, it was way too much easier to get in touch with the high profile athletes. We used to have professional players back then. So if you could have gotten in touch with one of the players, then probably you might have had a shot in the industry. At least you would be, just by hanging out with that person, you're going to have your name. But obviously you need to make your mark by doing your activities. But for initial basis, okay, so you can say that I know this player, like I know, so there's this person in the Indian gaming scene, Venom, Ankit Pant. He's like really, really known, and he recently came on BBC channel as well. So in the media attention. So back in the day, now this thing I'm talking about 2017, I was a huge Venom fan. Like he was something that I could look up to, as an athlete, be it the personality wise, be it the gameplay wise, because it's usually the case that gamers are quite shy. They're not able to speak up for themselves. It used to be a thing back then in the day, So, and they are indulged in certain activities, which, became a thing for the parents to question about that. If you're gaming, you're going to be indulged into smoking or drinking or stuff like that. So that was also a big thing. So Venom was somebody that, had a very good personality. He was convincing. So if you can get in touch with Venom, and I still do that, I advertise myself. I said, hey, I know Venom. So that leads up to a mark in the Indian gaming industry. So yeah, get in touch with somebody, like if you can, just by through the medium that what we're doing. And it's like I'm really thankful to you, Doc, for having me on your show. So so things like these actually I think are a great move in building up your personality slowly and gradually. You'll reach there. So I would focus on making a network, right? Making a network is also like one of the big things. And a 13-year-old guy can do that. Kids are smart enough these days, right? If 7 years back, I could think of getting into esports, and internationally it was like a huge phenomena. In India, it was like relatively less. And I think today's kids are very much acknowledged with all the technology stuff out there, social media. So yeah, get in touch, have a network. Those are the things.
Absolutely. I actually have a term for reaching up here in the gaming space because everybody calls it networking, right? Well, we gamers refer to it as power leveling.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Like find someone who's already done it to just carry you there.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, you need to do your work, but as an initial head start, you can just by hanging around, and it happens, Doc. So I have another business. I didn't discuss about that, but so it deals in health consultancy, right? So I happen to be an health consultant as well, and I took that up for esports, so that I can make some funds out of there and put that thing into esports, like a reinvestment kind of thingy. So in that business, it's heavily motivational, and these talks we have. So there's one particular element to it. People say that the kind of company that you have, the kind of people that you surround with, it defines you in the longer run. So if there are 7 smokers or drinkers out there, and you tend to hang out with them, I'm not saying it's the case usually, but you're bound to be the 8th one, right? And if 7 successful people are there, 7 people who have made their names, who have made a feat in the industry, you tend to hang out with them, you try to get in touch with them, you at least reach somewhere just by hearing them out, what they say. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So true. Okay, Shivendu. I believe, this show is supposed to be about the person I'm talking to. It's not necessarily about the gaming, right? It's not about the games. I want to talk to the people behind the controller. So I want to know, how are you advancing yourself each day? What are you learning? What are you developing in yourself?
Like as of now, especially from past 2 years, it has been discipline. Like, I don't know, Doc, how did it kick in? Like the comfort zone, it actually became a real thing for me. And it just, it surprises me that how come it's the thing? Because if I look back 3 or 4 years ago in India, I think it's worldwide. Sorry to go about that reference, but I think schools in US are a little bit chill as compared to India. I don't know if it's a myth or what, but in
Depends on where
India,
you're at.
yeah, because in India, there are a lot of restrictions, and people in school especially take things really seriously for some reason. I don't know. So yeah, in school, it was like getting up at 7 or 6, finishing off your school, then walk up for your extra classes, like, for your competitive exams and all those things. So I was into those activities, but since past 2 years, especially when the college started, when the university thingy started, I became really lethargic, like, procrastination. It actually became a thing. And I didn't even realize that how did it kick in all of a sudden. So each day it's a fight between a sleepy ass, sorry for that, a sleepy and, a really drowsy Shivendu against somebody who is competitive and who is heavily doing that. So my challenge, yeah, obviously I have to keep myself updated with what's in the industry, but my main challenge right now is to get myself back on the track, be really, really productive as much as I can, and stop, just letting go of my time just like that. And yeah, I know that it sounds quite trivial to most people. People have serious problems, like really serious problems. And me saying about this thing, it may not seem serious, Doug, but I do believe that, people especially look down upon their time. The one thing, and in fact, Albert Einstein or somebody also quoted on the thing that the best thing that you can value about is time, right? People always underestimate time, and I think that's the real thing. So discipline, I would say, Doc, that I'm working upon.
Absolutely. No, 100% on that. And we all have our own mountains to climb, right? And there's no way to judge somebody else's mountain because you're not in their shoes.
Exactly.
Okay. Shivendu, this has been a fantastic interview. I really appreciate this. How do people get in touch with you? How do they find you on social media or reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me on social media handles. Currently, I'm on Facebook and on Instagram. So on Facebook, it's Shibzi. And, there's a catch in that. So instead of I have one, right? So it's SH1B and Z, right? So Shibzi, it goes about, I'll share with you later on. So Shibzi it is. On Instagram, I have SHIBZ only. So yeah, you can catch me on Instagram and Facebook. I'll start off with the YouTube part as well, but I'm trying to build up to it, right? Like in a proper way. So I'll do things properly over there.
Right.
So I'm waiting for that.
Fantastic. All right. Now, as we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you want to share or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
Oh, it was a fantastic interview taken by a fantastic guy, I must say. But yeah, one thing I think that we can discuss for 1-2 minutes more is that, Doc, it's quite a thing today, the platform of choice that people are having. And I also mentioned in the invite that you sent me, so there was a section about that if I want you to, discuss about something in particular. So it was a platform of choice when it comes to gaming and esports, because it has been a huge debate, especially in the Indian gaming scene. If you've heard of PUBG Mobile, so PUBG Mobile is actually a thing in the Indian subcontinent. Like as far as my studies and all those things goes internationally, PUBG Mobile, I don't think it's a really big deal over there. People are playing more onto PCs, people are playing more onto consoles. Mobile is something for the fun. But in Indian subcontinent, because people have access to smartphones, like a really, really huge access. So games like PUBG Mobile, Free Fire, or Call of Duty Mobile, they are getting a lot more attention. But the thing that is associated with that, Doc, is that, people are saying that the true gaming actually comes from PC and consoles, like, the traditional gaming sources that have been. But yeah, and it's a huge debate.
The numbers show that mobile beats everything, and it's concentrated right there in Asia.
Exactly. So that is the thing that I wanted to know your views about that as well. Like, how do you go about that? Because see, I do believe that each and every gamer must be respected, whether it's a mobile gamer, PC gamer, or a console gamer. But I think there needs to be a fine line between that, Doc. Fine line or a synergy that each and every aspect of it is treated properly. And I do think in a couple of years down the line, people will realize that, okay, yeah, PC gaming is actually also a thing. It has been since ages. Because right now, I think it's a boom. It's a wave that is going in, right? Everybody's getting into the mobile scene because it's popular these days. But I think 5 or 10 years down the line, no doubt, mobile gaming would pick up. But I do believe that, people would realize that there have been PC gamers. There are people who carry their keyboards, mice, headsets, monitor, and the entire setup with them, especially to LAN parties. And then you have guys who just play on a device. I know it's a good thing, but being a PC gamer, it kind of hurts to, see that. I want to know your views on that. Like,
My views are a gamer is a gamer is a gamer. You see, you're younger than I am by a little bit. So I had this thing called a Game Boy. And it was this big brick. And it 8 batteries like you wouldn't believe. And it had a green screen that you had to hope that there was light to be able to see this thing. And if you played a Game Boy, you were a gamer, right?
Yeah.
How is a mobile device, which is able to run high-end graphics, high-def sound, is able to communicate online, play with other people online, how's that any different? It's not.
Yeah, that is also,
honestly, it's simply, older gamers being stuck up about, oh, my system is better, my console is better. Oh, come on. We're all gamers, and, how we choose to play is how it is. It's just leading to the further siloization of gamers. You have esports, you've got streaming, but within each of those silos, it's all broken up into the different IPs. It's broken into different genres and ways people play it. So there is no gamer. Like, that's kind of the point I have for this show is I talk to all these people, and nobody is the same as everybody else. We all have different
Exactly.
opinions and different interests and different, things that we like and dislike and different ways we play. And some people they do nothing but work, but play a little bit at night, or all they do is play and then, nothing else, right? Like, there is no gamer. And so to say, oh, just because you play mobile, it means nothing.
So are the demographics same? Like, are there same number of mobile gamers in USA as compared to India? Or is it
So, the stats, the research that's been done say that it's still predominantly consoles and PCs here. But it's obviously picking up more and more. But I'll tell you, just because APAC, the Asian area, is booming when it comes to mobile, that's where a lot of developers are going to start putting their focus, because they're going to know where the money is.
And it has been the thing, like if you've heard about Fnatic and all these, big esports organizations, they are still into PC and console gaming, but they have started to west out in, mobile stuff as well in Asia Pacific. And that has never been done. Like, people were really astounded by that, So, that's the thing.
All right. Shivendu Mishra, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much for coming on. We genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Doc, for hosting me. And it was really, really amazing, talking to somebody who has kind of, similar thoughts when it comes to gaming and esports, and somebody who's doing so much for the gaming and esports industry. Right, you may be like, oh, Shivendu, okay, no, I'm just good at it. But Doc is truly like, if things go right, and which I do believe that hopefully in 5-10 years, if we tend to meet physically, that would be like a really huge thing. And we look down upon this podcast that 5 years ago we had this thing. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate that. I really do. All right, but thank you again. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all: don't be just a gamer. Be a gamerpreneur.